Everybody. Oh,
Hello, welcome. Good morning, and welcome to the Ontario Network of CAPC and CPNP projects to a webinar offering that we have today. My name is Sydney Bell. I'm the network program lead, and I'm really delighted to have you here and to be welcoming our guest presenter to this session this morning. Before we get into that, I would just like to take a moment and acknowledge that our network gives gratitude and thanks to the First Peoples and other Indigenous peoples of the territories where we work and serve for sharing this land in order for us to continue our work with families all across Ontario. And just recognizing that we are coming here from across a big geographical area, and I invite you to consider the original peoples in the area where you are joining us from. And with that, I would like to welcome Maureen Hampton, who is here to talk to us about group work and facilitation skills. Welcome, Maureen. We're really glad to have you here.
well, thank you. It's an honor to have been asked to do this presentation, and I thank everyone for coming on a Friday too, before a great, well, it looks like good weather here coming. So thank you everyone for joining. So we're here, like Sydney said, to talk about group work. If at any time anyone has any questions, feel free, and we will certainly have a question time at the end. We have an hour or so. I start out the presentation, it's quite general, and then we'll get into a bit more detail. I think we're going to start with a poll to see people's experience in group work, just so we have an idea, if that's okay.
That's great. And I'll hop off video now. And which one do you want me to launch first, Maureen?
Just the one about group experience, people's
The open one or the closed one?
either one is fine. We can do both. It's
Okay.
fine. Yeah. Thank you. I forgot there were two.
Okay. So I've launched it. You should be seeing it, hopefully.
Yeah. I love technology. Great.
Let me know when you want me to end the poll. Looks like.
Yeah, that's good. This is great. Okay, that sounds good to me. So we, just some moderate experience, which is great because this is very basic. So
yeah, you've got a good variety. There's a good
yeah,
variety of folks here. Yeah,
super.
we can learning from each other too.
Terrific. Thank you, Sydney.
Okay, and you want me to open the other poll?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay. Oh, here's the results for the first one, if that's
Perfect.
helpful. Okay. And then, oops. Sorry, we just did the open one, right?
Yep.
We need to do the closed one now. Okay.
Oh, terrific. This is good.
Perhaps a little less familiar with closed groups than open groups.
Oh, terrific.
I'll just give it one more second for anybody else who wants to add in. Okay.
That's perfect. Thank you.
And here's the results.
Perfect. Thank you. That's great. Thank you very much. All right. Are you there, Sydney?
I am.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, you can. That's
Sorry.
great. We can. Sorry, it just went silent.
Yeah.
I thought, did I lose everybody?
Sorry, I got distracted
Yeah,
answering
no,
a
that's okay.
question.
So yeah, so we can take that down now and we'll get started. That's great. Thank you.
Oh, I thought I did take it down. Are you still seeing it?
I am. Maybe I need to close it here. Okay, that's
There
good.
you go. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so we'll get started. So I've been doing group work for well over 20 years and doing more specialized group work as I go. I've done work with like with a women's shelter and also with Connections where I work. We're in the CAPC CPNP running we call it the Making the Connection group, which is also called Connections from the training down in with Margaret Leslie. I don't know if other people are familiar with that. So yeah, lots of years of different kinds of group work from assertiveness to cycle of abuse to struggling with our childhoods to coming from a trauma-informed approach. So this is a general idea of how to do group work. And again, we'll have lots of time for questions. So we'll just get started. So yeah. So just trying to see if I can make this work here. I'm not great at technology. So as we know, can everyone see the screen okay?
Yes, I see
Okay,
it.
great.
Yeah.
So as we know, or you may be aware that group work is a really valuable tool, and in fact can be as powerful as one-on-one therapy for people. It enhances connection. It offers support and information. It's a place to listen and learn, but it's also a place to be heard and to be validated. When a woman or a man or anybody hears someone else experience the same thing they've experienced and come together for that commonality, it can be very empowering to make changes and to feel that they're not alone in their struggles. So a group is I've witnessed some amazing things happen, and it's a really good time for peer-to-peer teaching. So just never underestimate the power of how great group can be. So the following information is in keeping with best practices. We always encourage facilitators to add add their own ideas to group and develop it so that you're really comfortable running your own groups. Group formats, it can be in person, it could be indoors or outdoors. Virtual has become very popular for groups and actually can be really inviting for some people that are afraid to go or have anxiety around coming into a group. Harder to facilitate this kind of group because it's harder to keep an eye on people's expressions and where people are at. There's also phone groups where people just join in, kind of a reduce isolation idea. And that's something I'm developing right now for agency. Groups are formal or informal, open or closed. Open mean people can join at any time. Closed mean after usually the second group, we don't take any more people in. Groups can be large numbers and or small numbers, ongoing or limited. It could be like a one time a year. It could be ongoing, never ending, just a constant group all year round. So informal groups are more usually a drop-in format, casual. They likely are there to meet a criteria. Like where I work, we run Good Food for Healthy Baby. It's a drop-in, as many of you probably do in your CAPC CPNP projects. They may or may not have to register, or they may have to sign in when they get there, or they actually may have to fill out forms so that you collect data. Maybe ongoing, maybe, like I said, once a year. You may have predetermined topics, or just might be casual. People might decide that day what we talk about. Often, again, peer-to-peer teaching, and you actually may have guest presentations as well. Formal groups typically have two facilitators. There usually is a pre-registration, meets a certain criteria, such as experiencing abuse or wanting to learn about parenting, might be learning about assertiveness, whatever your topic is. May have a pre-interview, which we'll talk about. And it usually has a specific agenda each week. There's a schedule, a workbook might be provided, and it may be ongoing, but it's usually a number of weeks, and then there's a break, and then you run another group. But there usually is also a specific room setup, which is good. Open groups, again, drop-in registration, may have topics or presentations, not usually a mandatory attendance. You just might encourage people to come, but they can come if they want, or they may come every second week or once a month. New people can join at any time. Often we see with open groups, there's partnerships with other agencies. So you may have a dietitian or a nurse, like the health unit, nurse practitioners. You might give away things like food vouchers or prenatal vitamins, clothing, or may have giveaways. Closed groups are more specialized groups. There's a mandatory pre-registration, often a pre-group interview, and it determines group readiness, because that's an important, and we're going to talk about that. It usually has a specialized purpose. So if you're teaching women about abuse, the topic will be, every week we'll portray something with, or we'll, sorry, not portray, but educate women on what abuse looks like, or it might be the cycle of violence. It might be how to spot the abuser. It might be how to, when you leave, might do safety planning, that kind of thing. There is an expectation of attendance because usually it's limited numbers. So that part of the pre-group interview is, can women or men make a commitment to attendance? That may include an evaluation, and hang on a sec, I'm just moving this over here. May include a participation certificate, and it also might be highly confidential, which is important in if people are disclosing really personal information. So for a pre-group interview, I personally meet one-on-one with people, and I ask them questions like, how did they hear about the group? What makes them want to be a part of the group? I ask them if they have any experience in the topic. So if we're going to talk about, like, I run a group called Making the Connection, and we talk about raising children 0 to 6. We talk about unhealthy relationships, and we talk about substance use. That's the bulk of the group. So we may, I may ask a question like, do you struggle in your relationship? Does your partner ever yell at you? Do you feel ever afraid at home? Do you have any questions about the impact of your relationship on your children, that kind of thing? So then you get a feel of where they're at. One important question is, what would you require to make you feel comfortable so you could share and contribute? So some women might say, I've had answers like, I need to know that there would be consequences for breaking confidentiality. It might be, I need to know that these people are not in the group, and they may actually name people. And I wouldn't tell them if they were in the group, but I would say, well, maybe this group isn't a right time for you, because it can be a small town, small group. I would ask them about their barriers. This is really important, especially in a closed group setting, because if women, and I'd say women, but it could be men as well. When women have small children, they have childcare needs. They may have transportation needs. And if you're talking about unhealthy relationships, they may have a partner who doesn't support them in attending that group. So really important to, before the group starts, to talk about these and help problem solve around so that they can have consistent attendance. And then if you're providing childcare, important to find out if they or their children have any allergies or special needs. And then you would talk to them about, if they had any questions, that kind of thing. So when a formal group starts, the first group is probably the most important group, because it's setting the stage for what's going to happen, and you're gaining people's trust, and you're helping the group to connect, because it's really important. I mean, sometimes you get a group, and for whatever reason, people just don't seem comfortable with each other. They can't seem to share. And it can be really, really stressful for the facilitators because, but in general, like I'm running a group right now, and it's just amazing how much they're connecting. They're supporting each other. They're offering drives. They're helping the moms. One mom is helping another mom set up her car seat properly. It's amazing. So the first group is it's always important to discuss the purpose of the group. So we're here to talk about this, where your funding came from, why you're running the group, and how long this group has been running. And you introduce the facilitators. You talk a little bit about your background, but it's also really important for you to share why you like running this group. What do you get from running this group? Often we like to say that you learn as well. I learn from the women that I serve. I learn about how to run a group better. I learn about my own experiences, and then you tell them what your role is. So your role is to keep things going. That you at times may challenge an opinion, especially in a structured specialized group, because we don't want people, because it's a peer-to-peer teaching, we need to correct misinformation. So if someone says, the sky is always blue, we want to make sure that the rest of the people don't, necessarily leave there thinking that. So it's important to correct in a positive way, and respect the opinion, but that in fact this information comes from Public Health Agency of Canada. It's important for facilitators to call out people that are breaking guidelines that the group developed together. So if there's let's say someone picks up their cell phone to use, if in the guidelines there's no cell phone use, which is very typical, it's important for the facilitator to ask that person to put her phone away, because it is disrespecting the rest of the group. So it can feel awkward at times, but really important, and it's important for the other women to see that you are able to manage that. We talk about what a check-in is. It's time to say, hi, my name's Maureen. I'm excited to be here. I've had a really tough week, but I'm ready to go. It's not a time to say, I'm in crisis, I need help, because often you'll see women will do that. And if it happens, you just try to correct it a bit to say, maybe you could stay for a few minutes after group, and I can discuss that with you one-on-one, because as you know, check-in is a time for just a brief hello and introduction so that we can start group work. And it's a great time for facilitators to see where group members are, what they may or may not be able to handle that particular day. Checkout is a time to, wrap group up. I usually say on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being great, 1 being not so great, where do you stand today? And I always hope for a 3 or above. And if I get a 2 or a 1, I would either ask the woman to stay after group for a few minutes, or I would follow up with a phone call. But I would always make sure that she or he is stable before leaving the group. That's really important, especially if you're talking about, heavy or difficult topics. If anyone has any questions at any time, feel free. It's important in the first group to establish goals of the group with the members. So, usually we get out a board or a whiteboard, and we say, so what do you hope to learn? What changes would you like to make in your life? What made you want to be part of this group? So someone might say, I want to feel better about myself. I want to learn how to, I want to learn if I'm in a healthy relationship or not, because it doesn't feel right, but I'm not sure. I want to learn to stand up for myself. I want to, there could be various reasons. I want to use less substance. I want to learn better coping mechanisms. So it can be quite open, and it's important to also, when you write on the board what a participant says, write it in their words. Don't rephrase it for them. Don't reframe it. Write exactly what they said. That's important because that validates what their experience is, even though the language may be, not what you think it could be, but important to use what they said and write that down. And if you can use those big sticky things, it's great because every week you can put that up on the wall, and you can review it at times. Establish group guidelines. This has to be on something that you can repost every week. These are some of the things, and try to let the participants come up with some of their own guidelines, but add these in if people don't name them. 100% confidentiality, really important. And go the extra distance to say, if for some reason you were to break confidential, you would be removed from the group, and you might actually be removed from the agency. There, depending on where you work and what the confidentially what you're sharing. Like at a women's shelter, it could mean the difference between someone's safety and not. So there's zero tolerance, and they would actually stop service to that person if they were to break confidentiality. No use of cell phones unless an emergency, because people are so addicted to our phones, including facilitators. So important for you to put your phone away. We actually have a rule at ours that if we supply childcare actually has to phone the room on a portable phone, so that we are not constantly checking our phone to see if a text came from childcare area. So they would have to phone the room, and that would be the only time. So we would never check our phones during group work ever. I actually I worked with a facilitator who I had to actually ask them to put their phone away. And I was really surprised. So making sure that facilitators are also following the guidelines is really important. Having a no judgment attitude. We're not there to pass judgment or on each other, and we're not there to give our opinion, because you'll find there'll be one or two people in every group that, oh, you need to do this or you should do that, and call them on it. Say, again, we're not here to give our opinion unless the woman says, I would like people's opinion on how to handle this. That's different. But no opinions unless asked for. And absolutely no sidebar conversations where, and you'll see that it happens in closed groups quite often. And it's okay just to lean over and just say, don't forget, no sidebar conversations. And it can be awkward, but it is the facilitator role to do that. And if you have two facilitators, it's important for the facilitator that's talking to keep talking, and for the other facilitator to just end that kind of thing. Sometimes you'll get wanderers in groups. They'll be up and they'll be wandering around, can be very distracting. That could be a question for, for your pre-interview. If you think you might have somebody who would be like that, because I've experienced that, and it can be really hard to control, and but they're anxious. So sometimes little fidget toys on the table help, or snacks, doodling, those kind of things to keep them at least sitting is so you can watch for that. And if you find there is someone wandering in group in break, you could say to them, I noticed that you're up wandering a lot. Is there something I could do to make you feel more comfortable at the table? Make sure that they know they'll have a break. Sometimes women want to go out for a cigarette, or they want to go to the bathroom, or they just want to get up and take a break. I think break times are important, especially in a group that's maybe 2 hours. And let them know what time they'll be. And tell women if they're upset, because sometimes you're dealing with heavy topics. Tell them it's okay to leave the room if they want, but not to leave the building. That and not to leave and go home. That you would that would disrupt the group, and that you would be worried about them. And if a woman is really upset, it's usually good for the facilitator that's not speaking to follow them out and just make sure they're okay. And you may have to stay with them for a little bit, but try to get back to the room as quick as possible, but making sure that the participant that's upset is okay and stable. So there's lots of things you can do to increase the likelihood of success in group running, especially closed groups. Well, actually, any kind of group. Make sure you have strong facilitators that are comfortable speaking. And if you have more than one, that they come from a team approach, that they work together, they get along well together, that they come from the same belief system in running groups. That's important, because if you don't want to challenge each other. Sometimes you'll see that where one facilitator say, well, I think you're not right there. That really can undermine the relationship. And some people think it's okay. I personally don't. I think if you don't agree with something the other facilitator said or did, it's a time to talk about that is in private, and just say, so what do you think about this? Because I'm just wondering if that was a proper statement. And I think if you have a good team effort, it's okay to challenge each other and be able to talk. You need the ability to lead you need to encourage, you need to be able to safely challenge. So like I said, if a woman makes a statement that isn't correct, or it could, actually cause her harm. It's okay to say, so can I ask where you got that thought from? Could I challenge your belief system and say, what do you think about this? And in most cases, they might feel a little bit ooh, but ultimately they I think respect that they're because they are there to learn, and that's our job, is to make sure that we're teaching them, properly, and that they're getting correct information, especially around like parenting or car seat use, those kind of things, and information about, abuse or that kind of thing. Um, Holding members accountable for guidelines, we've talked about that. And you debrief together after group, that's important, and reflect on what went well and what didn't, and how things might change. Or maybe next time you run the group, I might change this. So support each other and really be a team. That's important. Make your atmosphere really welcome, friendly, a proper room set up so that there's people don't have to, try to have the room set up before they get there. Wall art, if there is any, should express inclusiveness and be welcoming. So be aware of the environment they're in, temperature, who could see in the windows. You might have to close blinds. Is it secure? That kind of thing. Making sure that people aren't going to walk in and out of group. We always see that sometimes you're running a group connected to a kitchen and it's like Grand Central Station. So make sure you put a sign on the door that you've actually booked this space and please don't interrupt until this time. If possible, try to serve some food, even a snack like a bowl of popcorn. You'd be surprised how inviting that is for people, and it makes people feel at ease when they can snack on something. And people come in hungry, and it's hard to do real work when you're feeling hungry, and especially for kids too when they come to playgroup or if they're in a group setting. Small snacks work too, like apples, popcorn, pretzels. It doesn't have to be a meal, but a meal is always ideal if you can, and you'd be surprised. Your local stores will donate food trays and will donate cheese and crackers each week. Like if you ask and put it in writing, you'd be surprised how many people will actually help donate. So um, one of the barriers is childcare, and so if at all, if you can provide an in-person childcare, I know it can be expensive and you need space. Try to look for funding for that if you can, or subsidize their daycare costs. So you can say, if do you have someone that could take care of your children? If I gave you $30 toward it or $20, whatever you can manage to share, would that help? And that especially in a closed group where you want people to attend, providing transportation. So it might be a cab, depending where you live, bus tickets, transportation services, or mileage. Right now, I'm running a group, and most of the women actually have vehicles, and so we're contributing to their mileage, which is really helpful with the cost of gas. Providing quality resources. Make sure your resources are up to date. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Mother's Mental Health Toolkit. It's one of my very favorite tools, and they have great worksheets. So you can put them in binders and ask women to review them. You can use them during the group. You can ask them to do it at home as homework. And if you have the sheets and you can print in color, people are more likely to fill out the form or the sheet if it's in color versus black and white. Provide a book if you can, booklets. Go to the dollar store, get duotangs, little binders, whatever you can agency can afford, and put a nice book together for them, an agenda. Tell them it's theirs. Even write their name on it. Give them extra note pages, blank paper, pens, whatever they need, name cards so that they can put their name on the table, and ask them to take it home with them, or you can keep it for them if it isn't safe for them to take it home. Important to check in with participants through the group. You might want to send reminders. Don't forget tomorrow's group. Your transportation is coming at this time. Make sure you check in with those members that left with a low score, if they're at 2, or if they were particularly shared a lot of, some of their trauma. Check in with them to see if they need extra support. They may need you to spend half an hour with them a week or an hour between groups, just to make sure that they're stable, and because sometimes it can be very triggering. If someone says, I really like pizza, do you think you could serve pizza? Try to do that so that they feel, or if you could say, do you have a favorite recipe to bring? We could try to cook that, or we could serve that at next group. Be aware of referrals that you can make for women. We make referrals at the end of every session of groups. It might be for an assessment, it might be for further counseling, it might be to another agency, it might be to a program that you run within your program, within your agency. And make sure you thank members at the end of each group for sharing their personal stories, that it took courage, that how much you appreciate it. And also don't be afraid to self-disclosure is a tool that we use. Some people are really comfortable with it, some people are very guarded. I personally find that if you can share a little bit of especially if you're expecting them to share really heavy things, you might want to try to pick a story that you would be comfortable sharing about your experiences as a child, or your experiences for whatever it is that you're talking about. Because I do find in my experience that women, oh, okay, so it's, if they've experienced it too, then it can't be all bad, right? And make sure you're sharing something that is in the purpose of supporting them and not in the purpose of supporting yourself. That's the key. Evaluate if you can. It's you can do a self-evaluation, fill it out, making the assumption that not everyone can read. That's important. Sometimes you can read it out loud and ask people just to circle numbers or tick. Sometimes you can have a formal evaluation, which is really good, because then you can really see the success of the work you do, or where you lack success. You can use it for funding requests, because evaluated programs generally will get more funding than non. So that's something can be expensive, but you can also get universities to do it for free, and they're looking for things to just like that. So you just have to contact local universities that are close to you. Yeah, so I guess that's never underestimate the power of group. It's not the you in group, it's the we, and it's a really powerful tool. So does anyone have any questions? Would like to, we can open it up now.
We can welcome people to come on camera too, Maureen, with that,
Sure, that'd be
if
great.
you're comfortable, or just
Absolutely.
unmute.
Yeah.
Or if not, just type in the chat, and we could read them for Maureen. So if you have any questions, I guess just to kick things off, Maureen, I have a few things that I would like to follow up with you on. But when you talked about say during the checkout, right? And you're asking people to kind of rate how they're doing. And if they're give a low rating, you talked about just making sure that they're stable.
Yeah.
Right. Can you describe, like, what do you mean by that a little
Sure.
bit, or how do you know, or what might be some indicators?
Well, some women, like, as people, some people are more emotional than other people. So
Mhm.
checkout can often be a time for women. Some of they, they will start to cry, or they'll, if they've been triggered in the group, which often is the case, and you have to expect that, especially if you're dealing with childhood trauma, that kind of thing. So it's just important that when I say stable, I mean making sure someone isn't suicidal, making
Yeah.
sure that they will be able to go home and parent, or you might come up with an idea. So do you have to be home right away, or could you take 15 minutes to maybe have a coffee or
Right.
sit outside? So give them
Settle
some
their
ideas to deflate,
Yeah.
right? And offer them, if you can, to stay after. Now, there may be always that person that will always say they're at a 2, so they get that extra time after group. But if they're sharing and they're contributing to the group, maybe you can try to make that, just accept that that's going to be something you do each week with this person. And you can change facilitators with them too, so that there isn't a dependence on one. It's really using your judgment on, how high risk is this at this moment. Um, and and sometimes other women will say, do you want to go to a coffee together, that kind of thing too, right? Sometimes other
Yeah.
women will say, And again, like, you don't want to control that, but you don't want to also put that on other people to help them resolve either, because they have their own, they've had their own experience there too. So that's a trickier thing. But yeah, just making sure they're okay. Are you okay to drive? Can I make you a coffee to go? Is there anything I could do to support you? That kind of thing. But try not to get into, or you could book maybe you'd like to come in tomorrow and meet with me for an hour and we could talk about this kind of thing. Sometimes I do that with women too.
Right. Provide
Yeah.
that space.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now, Kim, you had come. Do you have a question?
No, I just came on screen. I guess,
Yeah.
sure, I have a question.
Great.
So most, like for Simcoe County, our CAPC and CPNP programs have typically been a drop-in style. So they're more, that open group.
Yeah.
But the closed group does take me back to the days that I used to do Choices for Children. So as I was going through it, I was thinking, oh yeah, I remember doing that. Yep. So I'm just wondering, I know that lots of people represent CAPC and CPNP programs on here. So do the other individuals, do they run a lot of closed groups, or are they mostly open groups? And what kind of closed groups do you run if you do them?
Yeah. So for me, you mean? Like, yeah.
For anybody, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because so we're at our program. I'm in a CAPC CPNP program. We run, drop in play groups, drop in good food for healthy baby. I run a specialized group called Making the Connection. It's a 10-week program. And it's based on the Connections group that Breaking the Cycle developed. And we have modified it to include 4 extra topics. And it's a closed group, and we run it 3 times a year. And it's we work from a trauma-informed approach. We always do pre-interviews, that kind of thing. No children present during group at any time. That's just not okay, because it's anything to do with mental health or trauma. We just no children should not be in the room, even babies. So we provide childcare, or we applied for some money. We got a significant grant, and so we have giveaways. We have a meal. We have childcare, transportation. We're really lucky to get that. So that's a 6-year program, and we're actually going to be developing doing the same group for dads starting in September. So I'm super excited about that. Yeah. We've sometimes done. We did a Skills for Success group once. We've done, I think, Triple P. That kind of thing. We do specialized school readiness programs. Yeah. But this one, Making the Connection, is it's gaining a lot of popularity. We filled our last group, and we don't do more than 7 women at a time, and we actually filled it completely on referrals from Family and Children's Services. So it's getting quite popular. We're getting a lot of referrals. So anybody else have any groups that they'd like to share? Thank you, Kim.
I can tell you that the organization I work for, which is now called Camino Wellbeing, is it's a combination, right, of sort of that open drop-in weekly group that's just like a mom and tots type group, with then occasional closed groups, and many of the ones that Maureen mentioned, right? Making the Connection. We've also run Circle Security in the past, right? So these tend to have a curriculum attached to them, and are more like have a definite open and closed time as well. At least that's the experience in the organization I work for. Does anybody else who's with us want to share with Kim how things operate in terms of groups? Okay. Hopefully
Any
that
other
was helpful
questions?
to you. One other question I had, Maureen, was I guess that counterbalance of how do you approach, you often have people who are perhaps more withdrawn or shy or introverted. And so, encouraging that, connection with them. And on the other hand, you can often have people who are very extroverted and
Yes.
maybe dominate a group.
Mhm.
So what are your tips on for both of those
Well,
situations?
I always look for who would be the leader in the group. So, and there's always one. There's always one that will dominate and wants to talk the most. And sometimes it can be really hard because, and then there's the person that's escalated in group, and really that's an error on the facilitator because those people aren't group ready. Are they coming in with this ability to hear and learn, or is it? And especially when you're talking about childhood trauma, then once they start sharing and sharing, and they can go into some very detailed. And sometimes you just have to let them go, and other times you can say, I can see that you're really passionate about your experiences, and we just want to make sure everybody gets a chance to share. And then to someone who's really quiet, you might say something like, I see you're very quiet, Sue. Would you be comfortable sharing something? And sometimes they say no, but sometimes it's all they needed was just that. And you never want to force someone to share, but you do want to encourage. So if you find, like, some people are very intimidated to speak, but once you say, "Hey, Sue, so could you tell me what you're thinking right now? So I see you seem deep in thought. Could you share with us what you're thinking?" You'd be surprised how much they'll continue to share. And once they've spoken once, they'll speak again. And that's my experience. So, but if you do have that one person that is really, can't stop talking, can't stop sharing, can't, and is quite escalated, um, sometimes you have to say to them after group, I noticed that you seemed like you had a lot to talk about. I could meet with you one-on-one because it's really important in a group setting to give everybody an opportunity to
I
share,
like
right?
that.
Because
Yeah.
and someone who isn't regulated, right? It can be, I mean, we had one mom just kind of erupt in group once, and just was started to blurt out some really traumatic experiences that she had experienced, and they were pretty shocking, some of the things she was saying and her graphics around it. And so we had to take a break in group and regulate her before we could move forward. So it's always okay to say, you know what, I think I need a break. I really got to go to the bathroom, whatever. Just make up something to interrupt, and then have the other facilitator work with that person. Usually one-on-one is better in that case to help regulate them. Or if you know that client more so than one of the other facilitators, best for you to do that too. So yeah, but it's really important that you don't, make sure that you'd really call on the people that aren't talking, and you can say, you better speak because I'm going to call on you if you don't. And you kind of make joke, bring some humor into the group. Make sure you have lots of laughs if you can. Um, and and let them know that that's part of your job, is to, because in a group it's really important everybody speaks. So
Mhm.
you know
Yeah, that's
yeah,
that's great. That's I really like that, invitation to say, to letting the really talkative person know that we can also have some other time, right? And that
yeah,
just
yeah,
might help them know that, okay, there will be a space to get out all the,
yeah.
the things that they feel
And
they
sometimes you just have to say, I appreciate that you have a lot to say right now, but I'm going
need.
to have to close you down right now because
Mhm.
we really have to move on to what we're here to talk about, because you'll find they'll just start veering off on their
Mhm.
stories or their experiences, which are valid. But if
Mhm.
you have a lot of curriculum to get through, you just say, you know what, we have a lot to get through today, and I
Mhm.
appreciate your enthusiasm about what you're
Mhm.
talking about and what you're bringing to this group, but I really
Mhm.
have to stop you now. And maybe at the end of group we'll have time to go back to what you were saying. Do whatever you need to do, because it isn't really fair to the rest of the members,
Mhm.
especially if they're sharing. Really, I mean, if you've asked people to share information, a little bit is fine. But trauma informed approach isn't so much about what happened, it's how it made you feel, or how is it impacting your life now. So that's important. And I really can't emphasize enough to, sometimes you see people have counseling sessions with babies and stuff in the room, and their little nervous systems are picking up And it's important if you can somehow provide childcare or offer money toward childcare. It'll be better for mom and better for baby, because as mom, and then a lot of people say, well, it's just a baby, she's breastfeeding, then mom isn't group ready. If she's breastfeeding, probably not able to take part in a 12-week group consistently, right? Unless she can successfully pump or whatever. So, ask those questions and just say, you know what, maybe this group isn't right for you this time, but next September we're running a group again, and I'm going to put your name on the list for the next one. Because kids pick up on it. So we are supplying childcare, which is great. And at first, if a change needed or something, the worker was bringing the child to the group. But we actually asked the mom to leave the group and go down to the child, so that the child is never in the room, and it doesn't disrupt the group and stop the group till the child leaves. So kind of think about that if you can. And because there's lots of groups for moms and kids, which is great, right?
Very challenging, though. I've facilitated many of our, CAPC being those open groups with the childcare right down, and it's a very, very different, because you're constantly so you're not really able to get into the same kind of things that you would get into in a closed group, right?
That's right.
It
really might be more general, like feeding or child
That's
discipline, or it could be, what to eat while you're pregnant, those kind of lighter topics where it's not about trauma or, severe mental health. You might talk about anxiety, but you wouldn't share, some, heavier topics for sure. So closed groups are it's a different avenue for people to come and do work, and a lot of benefits to group work. So, yeah.
There's just a discussion going on in the chat about, who's offering in-person and virtual groups at this time, which is there anything did anybody else have a question? I can pepper Maureen with questions all day here. So want to open up space for anybody else who might have a question.
And also, if was there anything missing in the presentation that you thought you wanted to hear about that I didn't share with you? This is pretty general, but feel free to ask. Don't be shy.
Oh, I see a raised hand. Rosalind, hello.
Hi, good to see you. We have a few of us on the call today from Simcoe County, one of who is a new hire. And I think what's great about this webinar, it's really those best practices and key guidelines. So I can see using this in our onboarding process, because it's sometimes hard to explain the scope of the work that our facilitators and site coordinators do. I'm the relatively new program manager, so for me, this was a great launching point as well. But really just keeping in mind those best practices. We're building our in-person programming again, as Kim said in the chat. We're offering both, but there's still a heavier preference for the virtual. So we're trying to take advantage of spring and summer weather to get people back out in person, because we know once winter hits in Simcoe County, people will want that that virtual option. I'm
also happy to add in a screen. I didn't actually talk too much about virtual, but that's there are some key things too. So I could certainly add in on the board here just a few points on successful virtual group running, because that's its own unique type too. So I'm happy.
It really is. I think that might be great value added for people running the programs. And certainly our team predates me. Really, I don't think anyone wants to use that word pivot anymore, but they definitely pivoted and built some amazing programming. And now I think we've done such a great job. People are like, well, we really like the virtual, but we know there's that richness that happens in person that doesn't happen in virtual. But we do offer sort of a balance of core programming and more time limited, like you're talking about. And people seem to like that. But we're doing some focus groups next month just to check in, just to sort of see, as you say, some of those barriers you identified. What is preventing people from coming to program? What do they like? Where are we hitting the mark, and where are we missing it? And just as the work continues to evolve and change, right?
Mhm.
And we're just, what we really don't know is the impact on these little ones coming out of COVID and that infant and early mental
right.
health work that's happening out of sick kids. You know, it's so important. It really, you know, just feeds the
It is.
work that we're doing. So
And I think
thank
you're
you.
right. COVID, oh, you're welcome. COVID has really impacted and you know, isolation. I think, you know, I think virtual is a great you know, for us where we are, virtual didn't really work in our agency because we have such unstable internet around us because we're in the country. So
Yeah.
we never really did anything virtual at Connections. It's interesting. Whereas at Lana County Interval House, they were doing quite a few groups online. The only thing you have to really be mindful for is if you're doing, you know, groups that, especially like with abused women, that you don't know who's in that room with them, and
For sure.
that's the thing that's can be dangerous about online groups. But I'll add a couple boards and send this out to people if they'd like it. But yeah, I think it's great to do focus groups and find out because I think we need to pull people back out of their homes to like we're starting to see this huge referrals coming in again, which is great. And so we're really busy at Connections, and we're glad to see it because at you know, I run a birth companion program, and I thought, am I ever going to get a referral again? And
Yeah.
so, you know,
Yeah.
and now I don't have enough birth companions, so I have to do
Yeah.
another training, right? So yeah, and group work is but the drop-ins are a great way to get people and motivate them to come by giveaways. Like I don't know if you give out food vouchers
Yep.
or clothing exchanges or come for a meal, and go to places that, you know, have like those community dinners, show up at those places and recruit back in. It's a great way to, but yeah, but I will do a board on a little slide thing on virtuals because there is some key things for that too.
That'd be great.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also a reminder, you may or may not have seen that we have a follow-up learning circle planned for June 1st on group and facilitation skills. That Maureen is also willing to come and hang out and
Yeah,
talk with
absolutely.
us. And so a little more, a little less, well, not that we're very formal here, but even less formal than here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll come
yeah, just a
together
discussion.
and talk about our challenges, and we can certainly, you know, have some focus on that. So I'll, in my follow-up email to you all with the survey for today, I'll include the link to the June 1st learning circle if you're wanting to join that. Now, Adrienne, I just want to check in with you. Do you have a question? Or you've joined us on screen, which is also.
Yeah, I just like seeing faces. I think I'm an in-person group fan. We closed for 2 years during COVID pandemic, Hamilton Public Health, because we run our CPNP program, and we've just reopened in the fall. We've kept a virtual, which is okay, but as facilitators, we're more comfortable in person, I think, but we see the need. So I would really appreciate the what you'll share there, Maureen, about virtual. I love your check-in. Like I've done groups for 20 years, and this is the first time I've had a group skills learning opportunity. So I really appreciate this. The key elements for success. I'm definitely going to share that with my colleagues. The thing that we talk about a lot is we operate more as like an open, like it's like you said, that you register, but we're still drop-in kind of format. People come when they can, but we have a lot of paperwork, which is now computer work. And I find we're just cramming so much into our 2 hours. So you've got this informal drop-in feel, but then we've got this element of like keeping on a schedule a bit and having to go onto our computers and do stuff. So my biggest instinct is about connections and making connections and being informal. But then I have this formal aspect, I feel. It's hard to
It's hard to balance it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. And you don't want to, you know, inundate people with paperwork, but you know, you have data that you need to collect. And, you know, we do the consent, the first group, or if I meet with them in person for a pre-interview, I get the consent out of the way. And data sheet, usually we do halfway through the group, when we get to know them a bit better and we kind of see what questions we can answer and then tell them we have another sheet. And sometimes we'll do it like during break time. If someone's sitting at the table, we'll just say, can I ask you a few questions about, like, do you ever use the food bank, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's, but you know, consent is usually, you know, the first thing you have to get for sure. But yeah, I agree with you. In person is great.
I like to start too with what you were saying about just sharing about like what the group is, you know, what my role is, what we're doing here, and
Yeah.
just, you know, tell me a bit about yourself, you know, sort of have that little, and then explain we do keep electronic medical records here and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
consent piece, but I think some of our stuff, the instinct is just to get right in. Okay, hi, you're
Yeah.
here, and start
Yeah.
typing, and we're trying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to speak up and just say, let's just say hello. How are you?
It's
Come on
true.
in.
Yeah, because they, you know, building a trust with people, especially when you're in like a closed group with a significant, you know, topics like their childhood or, you know, intimate relationship battles, that kind of thing. You know, they want to know that, you know, you get it, and
Yeah.
you want to get a rapport going. I tend to use a lot of humor because that's just who I am, and but I find it's a really great way to, you know, and you kid them about you know, like, a woman says in group to me last week, you know, I wish you were my mother, and I'd be like, I'd be your mother and your worst nightmare, you know, this kind of thing. And it's just a way to, you know, you just keep it light, and know that you're there and that you're not judging, right? And you're right, when someone's coming in, you start typing and you're looking at a computer, not them. That's a good way to lose people very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's you know, for sure, sometimes you have to do things like but try to keep that to a minimum, especially in a closed group. Try to get that out of the way in a pre-interview. You can add that into the pre-interview, or
Okay.
do an interview halfway through, or ask every week that one person stays. If they're not waiting for transportation, you know, you could say, could you stay 10 minutes after, because I have some paperwork to do with you.
Mhm.
Try to make it and then, you know, trying to tackle people at different times. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's great. And I will you know, group work is I've always loved group work. I think it's where I flourish the most, because I see the peer-to-peer teaching, how successful that can be, as long as what's being shared is correct. And that's where the facilitator
Mhm.
has to be strong enough to say, you know what, that is something that is an old theory, and now this is what we do. Like, we don't spank kids anymore. We try to do this, or, you know, we don't actually put them in a timeout. We put them in a time in, and then they'll say, what's a time in? And you know, that's a good opportunity to teach again, right?
Mhm.
For
Yeah,
sure.
thank you.
Mm.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? Yeah, we have a minute or two left in our time. There's some, yeah, this is just, I love this topic, and I see it's applicable to, you know, I think generally most of our work in CAPC and CPNP, because it's all about holding space for people and coming together and you know, sharing, learning, and making connections. So I really appreciate, Maureen, that you were willing
Oh,
to come and share of your not, you know, you've got such wisdom and obvious passion and commitment to this work, and I have really appreciated learning from you. And as I mentioned, we will be sending out a short little survey for, you know, about this
great.
session. I put a link to it in the chat. So if you have a moment, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And also, you know, for some follow-up discussion that, you know, won't be recorded, right?
Nope.
Our learning circles are generally not recorded. So if you want to come and maybe dive a little deeper or explore some of these things with myself and Maureen, please join us on June 1st from noon to 1. I believe we're having that over the lunch
Yeah.
hour, right, Maureen?
Yep.
So I've put that link in the chat as well, and I'll send that out in a follow-up email.
And
And
I
yeah,
just want to say, if you want to
goodness.
talk to me directly at any time, if you have any questions, I'll share my info. You can always contact me at any time. I'm happy to share. If you need help with group development, I'm happy to. I do a lot of group development, so I can, you know, certainly support your agency in that. But I want to say a special thank you to Sydney before we wrap up. I couldn't do any of this without her. She is so supportive, and you know, I had to cancel this workshop. I got pneumonia a couple of weeks ago, and I had to. I felt so bad. Of course, the week you're expected to do these things, you know, you get sick. So I appreciated her support around that and making me feel that that was okay. And I also wanted to thank the people that developed the Mother's Mental Health Toolkit. I've learned a lot from that toolkit, and They also have a group format in there that I've taken some of my information from. And so I'd like to, thank them as well. And here's my information, and feel free to contact me at any time, and happy to help. And always excited about groups. We're starting a fathering program in September that we received some funding for. So very excited about that. That'll be very different. We're going to hire a male facilitator, and I'll be facilitating with him. So I'll let you know how that goes. And if someone would like a copy of my board, I'm happy to share. I'll send it to Sydney when I add the virtual piece. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ever call and ask.
Thank you. And realize we would be remiss not to mention, Maureen, that you are also hosting a half-day training on the Mother's Mental Health Toolkit. And I just put that information in the chat.
Yeah.
And we have a new date for that on Thursday, June 8th, for the morning, 9:30 to 12:30. So Maureen mentioned the toolkit earlier, right? And how it's such a great resource. And so another chance to learn from Maureen and learn about this great resource that's available to you. And there was a question, Maureen, as well about the sharing of your slides. Is that something you're comfortable with?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll add the a board on the virtual piece, and then I'll send it to Sydney. And so and Sydney can send it out to you. Absolutely.
Happy to do that.
Yeah, and if there's anything that you feel you'd like more information on, let me know and I'll add it to it for sure. You can reach me at mhampton@connectwell.ca or call me as well. It's been a real pleasure. I felt really honored that people actually signed up for this. So
great. Thank you. And yes, thank you all for joining us. And we'll be sending out, of course, the recording and all of the things, and hope to see you at the upcoming Learning Circle and at Maureen's Mother's Mental Health Toolkit training. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day and a great weekend ahead. And I look forward to seeing you at upcoming network events. So thank you again, Maureen, and take care, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Take care.
Goodbye.